So when a company is run or it is a public limited company, the owners are separate and the managers are separate. The owners are called as the principal and the managers are called as agents. Both have different objectives or different interests. Like for example, the managers always want their salaries to be more, they want to get more and more bonuses, they want to get promoted, they want to get more incentives. But as owners and shareholders, we need more dividend, we are planning to have more market price of the share. So wealth maximization is what the owner wants. So both are having two different objectives. One, the manager's objective is to get, he will run the business better so that his salary, his income, and everything could be better. Whereas the owner wants the business to run better so that his wealth can be maximized, share price can be increased. When there are two different objectives, there's always a problem or a conflict between the agent and the principal or the managers and the owners. So that is called as the agency problem. A conflict arising when people, the agents, entrusted to look after the interest of the principal use the authority or power for their own benefit instead. So managers, instead of working for shareholders' well-being, if they start working for their own interest or own benefit, then the agency problem will start. In corporate finance, the agency problem usually refers to a conflict of interest between a company's management and the company's stockholders. So shareholders, people who bought the share, and the management. If there is conflict or fight between these two, we say that there is agency problem in that company. The managers acting as the agent for shareholders or principal is supposed to make decisions that will maximize shareholders' wealth, even though it is in the manager's best interest to maximize his own wealth. So usually the manager should not think of his own wealth maximization, but he should think of his shareholders' wealth maximization. So that is the problem. If he sacrifices his own wish, he can satisfy the shareholder. But sometimes managers don't do that. They think about their comfort, their travel, their stay, and their income and salary. So the agency problem arises. I hope it is clear. When the manager starts spending for himself, earning for himself, and thinking only about himself, he will not think about the shareholders. And then there will be conflict or difference of opinion or fight between shareholders and managers always. When there is a fight or an issue between these two, we call it as agency problem. Is that clear? The next part is changing role of finance manager. So earlier days, I told you before the 1990s, the finance manager had no major role to play. He was just asked to get loan from people, go and convince bankers and people to give loan, and then invest that money in the company and see that the money is getting or growing. But today's world, until the early 1990s, the finance manager functioned in a highly regulated environment and enjoyed limited freedom in designing key financial policies. They were not asked to take major decisions. They were in highly regulated environment, means the environment where rules and regulations were given, and you have to follow these rules only and work. So there was no freedom. They couldn't take decisions. From early 1990s, however, the complexion of the economic and financial environment has changed in many ways. So now the financial managers are allowed to take decisions. There is someone called as CFO, Chief Finance Officer, under whom other people work. So they are allowed to take decisions, plan for the company's finances, funds, how to invest, where to invest, how much dividend to give, and whether mergers, acquisitions, and all should be done. All these major decisions finance managers are allowed to take. So the key challenges for finance manager appears to be in the following areas. The first one is investment planning, where I should invest. So he has to do NPV of each project or the different methods. NPV is just one method I taught you. Whichever method suits best for the company, they have to follow that method and see which investment opportunity is better. Where I should invest. If I have 7, 8 projects, which project is better? Then next is the financial structure. When we talk of financial structure, we are talking here about from where the money will come. Are we going to take loan, that is debentures, or are we going to take it from equity shareholders, that is owner's own money? So what structure to follow? Should we have a combination of loan and shareholders own money, or should we depend only on shareholders, or should we depend only on the loans from the bank and the debentures? So that structure the finance manager has to decide from where the money will come. First, where he should invest. Next, from where the money should come. Then he has to also work on the areas of mergers, acquisitions, and restructuring. If there is an opportunity to merge with any other firm, whether it is right to merge, is it going to benefit us, or it is not going to help us in any ways, that the finance manager has to decide. If we are acquiring any other firm, that means you are a big firm and you're taking over a small firm, whether this acquisition will help us grow, develop, or it will reduce our financial strength, the finance managers needs to check that and then take the decision. And restructuring can be of two ways. One is he can think of expanding the own firm, no need of mergers acquisitions. I will start a new factory, new product line, new service, and I'll expand my business. Or they can also think of cutting down. The business is expanded too much, we are not able to handle it, manage it, so let's cut down on a certain things, close down a certain showrooms, a certain build factories, because we are not able to manage. So restructuring can be either to shrink yourself or to expand yourself. So such decisions also the finance manager takes in today's world. Then working capital management, the current assets and current liabilities, how are we going to manage them? From where the money will come to manage that? To decide that also the finance manager plays an important role. Then performance management. Here by performance management, we mean how the money is performing, our investments are performing, where we have put money, how much it is growing, how fast it is growing. Risk management. Have we put entire money in one basket or have we diversified? That means, are we investing in only one thing and if that thing falls down, we are going to lose the entire money? Or have we put money in two, three businesses or three different areas so that even if one sector falls, the other sector is growing and we are still stable. So managing risk while investing money is also the role of finance manager. Investor relationship, from whom we take loan or with shareholders, the finance manager needs to maintain a good relationship with them. So a proper investor relationship has to be maintained. Next is foreign exchange management. If the company is dealing in international trade, buying and selling goods from other country, how we are going to pay, at what rate are we going to convert rupees into dollars or euros or pounds? So all this is foreign exchange management, where we think of how can we get more money and a better exchange rate. So that also the finance manager has to keep track. The next is treasury management. In case of treasury management, we are talking of cash management. How is going to manage the entire cash of the business? So cash inflows, outflows, where do I invest excess cash? If there is shortage of cash, from where do I get? All such decisions are taken by the finance manager. So that's the role of finance manager in modern days. It was earlier it was only acquiring money and investing it and looking how it is growing. Now he has to plan where to invest, he has to acquire money, he has to think of mergers, working capital, risk, performance, investors, foreign exchange, treasury. So all the areas we have to touch up. How does a finance department look like in a big company? So if you go to a big company, the finance department looks like this. There is a person, main head, called as CFO, Chief Finance Officer. Under him works the treasurer and the controller. The treasurer manages cash and credit. So under treasurer, there's a cash manager, a credit manager. Cash manager manages all the cash transactions. Credit one is into collecting money from debtors, loans, whatever they've given to others, how fast we can collect it. Then there is a capital budgeting manager who tells where all to put money. So he prepares a budget. This much money we want, and these are the projects in which we need to invest. So we call it as capital budgeting. I have 10 lakh capital. Where should I put? So preparing a budget and telling the investment plan. That is what is done by capital budgeting manager. Then there is fundraising manager, who is the one who will collect funds for the firm and give it to the capital budgeting manager, who can invest that money in different projects. And Then there is a portfolio manager who checks where all the business has invested money and how the portfolio of the business is running. So all the sectors in which we have put money, whether they're growing, any sector which is falling, should we remove money out from there and put it somewhere else? All these kind of decisions the portfolio manager takes. Then on the other hand, we have the controllers. In case of controllers, we have accounting manager. That is nothing but what we did in the first semester, accounting for managers. He prepares the journal, ledger, trading, P&L account, balance sheet. So he's the one who keeps all the financial accounting records. Then you have a cost accounting manager who is not worried about profit and all, but he bothers only about costing. How much was the cost of raw material? How much salary we paid? What is the cost in manufacturing this product, this service? So he is more so thinking from the cost point of view. And then works a tax manager who basically manages our taxes with government, always tries to help us out in paying less taxes and showing that the income is less, or he helps us in getting the refunds or saving our taxes. Whatever is the right for the organization, that is what is done by this. Then you have data processing manager who is specialized into preparing softwares which will help to analyze the financial data faster. Softwares like Tally, ERP, SAP, these all are managed by these data processing managers. And then finally you have the internal auditor who will check whether everything that is happening is correct or no. He'll certify the correctness of the work done. And then we go for the external audit. So this is how a team, a finance team looks like in the particular organization. So whichever team you enter into, you need to work according to that. If you enter into accounting manager team, you will do all accounts work. If you're entering into a capital budgeting managers team, you will do NPV, IRR, to find the cash flows, forecast the cash flows, find its present value, which is better, which is not better. If you're into fundraising managers team, you'll go and talk to investors, you'll maintain relation, you'll get loans for the company. So all these are the different roles company has, and there's specialized people and specialized team who are working for this, and all these teams report to the CFO. So functions of a treasurer and controller, I'll just read them out. A treasurer gets money. He has good relationship with bank. He manages cash. He manages credit transactions. He takes care of all the capital budgeting. He has a good investor relationship. Short-term funds for working capital are also managed by this treasuring team. They manage all the investments, and they're also taking care of the insurance that the company has, whether it is on goods or services or factory building. All the insurances are managed by the treasurer. Whereas in the case of controller, he is a person who is an accountant who prepares all the accounts, does internal auditing, helps in payment of taxes to the government, management accounting and control is done there, how the management is working, performing, and what kind of decisions they can take, like BEP and all those. And then budgeting, planning, and control department also works under the controlling team, where he prepares the budgets, plans for the budgets, and how to control the money spent. Okay, so that was all about how does the role of finance manager, then how a company's financial organization looks like, and what the treasurers and the controllers do. The next thing is financial decisions in a firm. There are three broad areas or the three major decisions that are taken. One is the capital budgeting, the second is the capital structure, and the third is the working capital management. So we'll understand these. Now, what is capital budgeting? I told you in my previous slide also, when you have money, where I should invest that money, when you decide, you call it as capital budgeting. So I'm preparing a budget as to where all I should put my money. The first and perhaps the most important decision that any firm has to make is to define the business or businesses that it wants to be in. So first thing is the firm needs to decide which business I want to be in, where I want to invest my money. So you cannot just get money and then decide what to do. First, you need to decide what are your plans, in which business you want to be in. This is referred to as strategic planning, and it has a significant bearing on how capital is allotted in the firm. So once you know where and what you want to invest, we call it as strategic planning, and this will help us to invest money properly in the firm. As strategic planning calls for evaluating cost and benefit spread out over time, it is essentially a financial decision making process. So when we're doing strategic planning, we'll compare both the cost and the benefits and the cash flows over a period of time. So that will help us to make proper financial decision making process. It helps us. Once the manager of a firm choose the business or businesses they want to be in, they have to develop a plan to invest in building machinery, equipment, research and development, go down showrooms, distribution network, infrastructure, brands, and other long-lived assets. This is the capital budgeting process. So first you decide which business you want to enter in, and then you decide where all you will have to invest in that business. So whether you want a building, you want to have machineries, go down showrooms, all this needs to be decided. Once you decide this, we call it as a capital budgeting process. So now we know which business we want to enter in and how much money we need for different purposes. Considerable managerial time, attention, and energy is devoted to identify, evaluate, and implement the investment projects. So which project to invest? For that, a lot of time, energy, and attention of the manager is required. When you look at an investment project from the financial point of view, you should focus on the magnitude, timing, and riskness of cash flows associated with it. In addition, consider the options embedded in the investment project. So when you're talking of investing somewhere, you need to consider a few points. What are those points? How much I'm going to invest, magnitude of investment, timing, when I'm going to invest, and what is the money that I'm going to get as returns, riskness of cash flows. What is the risk? Am I going to receive my money or it is going to go into losses? Need to analyze all these options in capital budgeting process. So all in all, understand capital is the money and budgeting is to decide where I need to put this money. So before getting the money, you need to decide this, which business I want to enter in, and if this is the business, how much money I'll need for machineries, go down showrooms, and how much should I be investing. Once you know where you want to put money and how much you want to put money, next is the capital structure. Here you will decide, fine, I need 50 lakh. Now from where is this 50 lakh going to come? So once the firm has decided its investment project it wants to undertake, it has to figure out ways and means of financing them. So the very first question, there are few questions that you need to answer here. What is the optimal debt equity ratio for the firm? So if I want 50 lakh, am I going to borrow 25 lakh and takes from shareholders 25 lakh, or full 50 lakh shareholders will give, or full 50 lakh I'll borrow? So what should be debt and equity ratio? Debt is loan, equity is owner's own money. So first question you need to answer, what should be the balance between the debt and equity? Next, which specific instrument of equity and debt are we going to use? Now, when I say debt, it is loan. So you have different types of loan. You can take loan from bank, from cooperative society, from friends. You can issue debentures to general public and take loan from public. So which instrument I'm going to use? Bank loan, debentures, society loan, that I need to decide. When I talk of equity, you have equity shares, preference shares. Which one you're going to use? We need to decide that. So that's the second question. Which capital market should the firm access? So should we go into the different capital markets? You have money market for short term period, then you have capital market for long term loans. Then which market you are going to go and list your company in BSE, NSE, or you're going to go to foreign exchange, foreign market and get capital from there? So which market you're going to contact to get the money? When should the firm raise finances? So when you need the money, all that 50 lakh you may not need at the beginning. You may need 10 lakh at the beginning. After 2 years, you may need another 30 lakhs. So what is the timing when you should be taking those funds? At what price should the firm offer its securities? So if I'm issuing debentures, each debenture will be of how much? 100 rupees, 1000 rupees, 50 rupees, 10 rupees. If I'm issuing shares, at what price I'm going to issue shares? Deciding that is also the role of finance manager. An allied issue is the distribution policy of the firm. So after you've decided for how much you will give the shares or debentures, how are you going to distribute them? Are you going to take the help of the brokers, bankers? Who's going to help you in that? Then what is the optimum debt equity for the firm? So this already the first question, the optimal debt equity, it is got repeated here. Should the firm buy back its own shares? Sometimes firm has excess cash or they want their own ownership back. They don't want public to hold their shares. So they start buying back their own shares so that they get the majority ownership. So that is also one of the decision that the finance manager has to take. So capital structure and dividend decision should be guided by consideration of cost and flexibility in the middle. From where we are going to get money and how much dividend we are going to give. Both you have to keep in mind looking into account the cost and flexibility. If you go for debentures, the cost will be high because you will have to pay fixed interest, which is a huge amount. But if you go for equity, then you cannot decide everything. You'll have many owners, you'll have to wait for the voting rights, and taking major decisions will not remain flexible. So you need to keep into account both cost and flexibility. If you only think of debentures, cost will be high. If you only think of flexibility, that means if you want only flexibility, you will borrow, cost will be high. If you want to reduce the cost, you will go for equity, but you will not be flexible enough to take decision. So you should have a proper combination. Don't rely only on one thing. The objective should be to minimize the cost without impairing the ability of the firm to raise funds required for value creating investment projects. So the main objective of a capital structuring team is get money from where there is less cost. So go to that bank which gives you loan at a lower interest rate, issue shares to equity shareholders for whom dividend is not compulsory. Whenever you earn money, you can pay dividend. So you need to get money at lowest possible cost. That should be the major objective. Any doubts still here? The first one was capital budgeting decision. Then we discussed the capital structure decision. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Next is the working capital decision. Here we talk about the short-term requirements of the firm. That is debt, current assets and current liabilities. So working capital management is also referred to as short-term financial management, or you can also call it as day-to-day financial activities that deal with current assets and current liabilities. Now, the key issues in working capital management are: the first is what is the optimum level of inventory? That means how much stock should I have for my daily operations? Second, should you grant credit to the customers or you should do only cash sales? So, if you're giving credit, on what terms and conditions? That the finance manager has to decide. How much cash should you carry on hand? So, how much should be cash in hand, cash at bank at any point of time in the firm? That decision the manager has to take. Where should the firm invest its temporary cash surplus? So as of now, I have excess cash. For 1 month, I don't need it. So for 1 month, where should I keep? So temporary cash that I have, how can I earn on that? That can be decided by finance manager. What sources of short-term finance are appropriate for the firm? So if I need a short-term loan, from where should I get it and what sources should I follow? So these questions, if they are answered properly, that means a finance manager is doing his role of working capital management in a better way. So the three major decisions: capital budgeting, capital structure, and working capital is what the finance manager is always bothered about. And the finance teams are working on making these three decisions right. Now, relationship of finance to accounting, relationship of finance with other disciplines. I think Madam has already explained you, Rekha Madam. So I'll not get into details there. I'll only focus on how finance and accounting are related and as well as how they are a little bit different from each other. So the first, scorekeeping versus value maximizing. Accounting just does scorekeeping because accounting will tell you this is the profit, this is the loss, this is the cost, these are the assets, these are the liabilities. So it is just telling you the score. Whereas when we come to finance, it is helping you to invest, take better decisions, plan for the financial decisions, and increase the shareholders' price, shareholders' value. So finance deals with value maximizing, whereas accounting deals with scorekeeping. Accounting is past and present. What has happened historically and what is happening today, it will only report that much. But finance is looking at the past and present. You are forecasting the future operations of the business. So, futuristic view finance has, whereas accounting talks about today and what has happened in the past. Okay, so that was the first difference or the relationship. Then accounting deals with accrual method, whereas finance deals with cash flow method. Accrual method means you have received or not received, but you still record it because you have earned it. You are paid or not paid, you still record it because you have incurred that expense. So that is accrual. You're not bothered about cash is coming in or no. You're bothered about whether profit has earned or no, sales has happened or no, whether cash will come today or tomorrow, doesn't matter. But you will show it as income. So accounting deals with accrual concept, but finance deals with cash flow. How much money is coming in, that is more important in finance terms. Accrual, it will come later, it will come at this time, that time, all that doesn't matter. How much is the cash inflow, cash outflow? Depending on that, the decisions happen. And finance manager focuses on cash flow because he can decide on the magnitude, timing, and risk of cash flows and take better decisions. So, how much cash flows are I'm investing, how much they are going to come, what time, and what is the risk. All the three are taken into account in finance. Certainty versus uncertainty. Accounting is more certain because it depends on the past data and what is happening in the present. But finance is uncertain because finance depends on making decision for the future. Mainly it focuses on the futuristic view. So decision making in the future market is always uncertain. Anything can happen. You may decide I will earn 5 lakh profit next year, but because of the pandemic, lockdown, shutdown, the business only didn't function, so you didn't get any profit. So finance is forecasting the future, and when you forecast the future, there's always risk, uncertainty that is involved. So that was the role of finance and accounting. Now we'll go to the main part which I had to start, that is sources of finance. But before going into sources of finance, we need to understand a few things. What is markets? What is capital market, money market? How it actually works. So first, this slide talks of financial planning. When I'm talking of financial planning, we do it for a period of 5 to 10 years. Typically 3 to 10 years, and on an average, everybody plans for the next 5 years. So naturally, you need to plan over an extended time horizon, and it should be fairly aggregative term. So 5 years to 10 years is a good term for which you can plan your finances. When you're doing the financial planning, you need to keep into account what is happening in the economy. So economic assumptions like inflation, GDP, national income of the different class of groups, how many are above poverty line, below poverty line. All these economic assumptions you need to keep in account. You need to do sales forecast. How much I'm going to earn in the next 5 years, 10 years. Then you need to prepare pro forma statements like the predicted balance sheet, future predicted P&L account, income statements. You need to plan your asset requirement, and then you're doing your financial planning properly. So to do all that, we have something called as a financial system in the country. So financial system is basically conceptually the financial system includes a complex of institutions and mechanisms which affect the generation of saving and their transfer to those who will invest. So what does a financial system do in a country? it helps the person who is ready to save meet the person who is ready to invest. So people like you and me will go and keep money in the bank as FD. The bank will use the same money and give it to the companies as loan so that companies can invest that money, produce, manufacture, create employment, and make the economy grow. So from generation of savings to transfer that savings to investment, the financial system helps in doing all this. So it may be said to be made of all those channels through which savings become available for investment. So our money which is saved into the bank becomes investments for the companies because they get loans from the bank. So everybody who helps in this process of converting saving into investments come under the financial system. So the main elements of financial system are instruments. How are we going to save or invest? Like FD certificate, state bank, SB account, shares, debentures, preference shares. All these are instruments that we are using to save our money or to invest our money. Then financial intermediaries. Who is helping us to save or invest? The bankers, the cooperative societies, the insurance companies, mutual fund companies, stock brokers, foreign exchange managers. These are all intermediaries who play a role and help us to invest our money or save our money, and for the companies to get that money and they can invest further and make the economy grow. Then you have financial markets through which you can buy and sell the shares, bonds, debentures. So there should be a place where this trading should happen. So that is financial market. And finally, you have the financial services which are provided by these financial intermediaries like the bankers and all others. Through these services, we are able to perform our tasks easily. So totally, the financial system consists of instruments, intermediaries, market, and services. And Indian financial system looks like this. So this is the components of Indian financial system. I have taken it from a textbook. You can just go through. This is just for your reference as to how financial system in India works. We may not discuss all of this in detail, but we'll discuss a few parts from this. Like we'll discuss the financial markets, what is a money market, a capital market, and all that. Then we'll discuss the financial instruments, which is nothing but your sources of finance, that part which we have to study in this chapter. Okay. So first let's start with the market. And today let's discuss the money market. Can anybody tell me what is a money market if you have heard about it earlier? Anybody money market?
Ma'am, money market, according to me, is something which is into penny stocks or bonds, government bonds and securities.
Okay. It is not into penny stock, but it is into maybe bonds and securities. But the major meaning is it is for short duration. When I say money market, I'm not thinking of years together, but I am thinking for a short time period, maybe a year or even less than that year. If I have to invest somewhere or if I have to borrow money for a year or less than a year, I can go to money market. So it is basically for trading in short term security. So the money market is created by a financial relationship between suppliers and demanders of short term funds having maturities of 1 year or less. So suppose I want to invest somewhere for 6 months. So I am the supplier of money for 6 months because I have money I want to invest. And suppose a company wants a loan for 6 months. So the company becomes the demander of that money. So suppliers are people like us who want to keep money for shorter duration. Demanders are companies who want to borrow for shorter duration. And we both meet together and do it in the money market. So meet means not live face to face. There are many intermediaries who help us do all this. The broad objective of money markets are threefold. So they have three objectives. The very first one is to have an equilibrium mechanism for evening out short-term surplus and deficiencies in the financial system. Evening out means we are removing out or we are getting the deficiencies out. So we can get the demanders and suppliers together so that there is no more demand or more supply. When we are giving money, there are people who want to take money and they meet up. So we are getting them into equality. Demand equal to supply is what money market tries to make. So demand for money should be equal to the supply for money because they get the demanders and the suppliers both at the common platform. The second is a focal point of intervention by the central bank for influencing liquidity in the economy. So whenever the central bank wants to put in money into the economy, pour in money into the economy, they make use of this money market. Because for a shorter duration, when they want to put money, they can do it through money market. Now, how do they do that? They help bankers in giving short-term loans. So banks start giving loans for money market for shorter duration. That means money is going into the market, it's getting pumped into the market. Companies are borrowing it and they're investing for their short-term needs and manufacturing the products and selling it. The third is a reasonable access to the users of short-term funds to meet their requirements at a realistic, reasonable cost and temporary deployment of funds for earning return to the suppliers of funds. So here we are trying to give or trying to supply money to the people who need at a reasonable cost, not very high interest, 30-40% interest, no. Trying to give them for a shorter duration at a realistic and reasonable cost. And the people who need it can get it easily. As well as for the suppliers, people like us who want to invest, we are getting fair returns on the money. Instead of keeping that money idle for 6 months in house, if I keep it somewhere for 6 months, at least I'll earn some returns on that. So I'm getting fair returns, and the person who needs that money is paying realistic and reasonable cost for that particular money. So the three objectives are repeated again. First is to make the demanders and supply meet and make equilibrium. Second, the government or the reserve bank or the central bank uses money market to pump in money into the economy for a shorter duration. And third, the person who is taking loan can get it at an affordable rate, and the person who is giving money can get some reasonable interest rate. So both are benefiting. The one who demands is paying reasonable cost, and the one who's supplying is earning some reasonable percentage of interest. So these are the three major objectives of money market. Now, how does a money market constitute of? Money market is not a single homogeneous market, but it is composed of several specialized sub-markets. So under money market, there are different sub-markets that work, and all these are specialized in their own area of work. Each one of which deals in different types of short-term credit. So there are different types of credits. Each subgroup in the money market works in different areas and for shorter duration. So these are the four groups, if you can see: the call money market, collateral loan market, acceptance market, and bill market. So we'll understand all these four. The call money market. Now here the word itself is trying to tell you call money market means whenever I give a call, I should get my money back. So that means it is a market for very short duration loan. Okay, so here I'll highlight it. It's for a very short period, not exceeding 7 days, but more often it deals with day-to-day or overnight transactions. Okay, there is no collateral security required against call money. So here the loan is given for a very short duration. Maximum is 7 days. Usually overnight loans are also given. I give you loan in the morning, today 10 o'clock, you have to repay it back to me tomorrow 10 o'clock. So just for a night, overnight, 24 hours, I have given loan and I'm charging some minimum interest on it. you are paying the interest as well as repaying them. So if somebody, these kind of loans usually happens between bankers or big companies. Like suppose Citibank needs 10 lakh rupees today and it will give it back tomorrow. So it approaches Union Bank and says, give me 10 lakh rupees only for 24 hours. I'll give you interest on that. So that is called money market. Overnight. For a day, money is taken, used, next day the money is returned with interest. Big companies do it. Company A go and tell the bank that give me 1 day loan. I want very short duration loan and I'll repay it tomorrow with so and so interest. Or one company can borrow from other company. So here the basic logic you have to understand is it's for a very short period, usually for overnight, maximum for 7 days, and for such short period, no security, no guarantee or anything is kept. You get it, there is no collateral that is required. Collateral is nothing but the security. They possess high liquidity. The buyer has to pay the loan as and when asked for or called for. It is on account of this reason that these loans are called as call money or call loan. So suppose you have taken loan from a bank for 1 day. Whenever the bank gives you a call, you need to go and repay that loan. That's why we call it as call money market, or it is also called as call loan, because on a call you need to go and return it back. The investment of funds in call market meets the needs of liquidity but not that of profitability, because the rate of interest on call loans is very low. So here you are not giving this loan to earn huge profits. The motive is not to earn profit because the interest rates will be very low. For a day or a 7 day loan, you cannot charge too high interest. It will be hardly 0.01% or 0.005%. So it's hardly any amount. But the major motive is to meet the liquidity, immediate requirement. If somebody has, you help him out. And you also earn a very reasonable or a small amount for that. Call loans are useful to commercial banks because these can be converted into cash anytime. So usually commercial banks give call loans because you can immediately convert it into cash. They are almost like cash. It is a form of secondary cash reserves for commercial banks from which they earn some income too. So instead of loan, keeping that money idle, they give 1 day or 2 day loan. At least some amount they will earn on that, as well as whenever the bank calls after a day or two, the company people come and repay back the loan. So it's for a very short duration. It helps in creating liquidity. It is used more so by commercial banks because instead of keeping cash idle, they think like, let us keep this much, give 1 or 2 days loan and earn some money on it. So this was about call money market. Any doubts anybody in this? Is that clear with everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
The next.
Yes, ma'am, but I have one question. If someone fails to pay the means that call loan, then
If someone fails to pay, then see, those call loans are not given to people whom we don't know. It's given to big companies, and if they fail to pay, then their properties and all can be held responsible because it's loan from bank. You cannot just default and go away. Bank can do a case on you, and the money will be recovered by selling your assets. But because it is for very short duration, bank doesn't keep anything as security. For 1 day, what will I do of your property papers and all those? And it will take lots of time, government formalities, you need to sign bonds and all if you have to keep something as guarantee. And the loan is so short duration that doing all that makes no sense. That's why they may not ask for security, but if you don't repay, it's obviously a loan which has records, and later a case can be filed against you and money can be recovered. So it's given to only those people who have repayment ability, who are regular customers of the bank, who deal with loans of lakhs and crores of rupees with the bank, and they have lots of other loans taken, securities kept. So such people only get it. Generally, if you and I go and tell give 1 day loan, bank won't give us. Okay. Any other doubts? Okay, let's
no,
complete
ma'am.
the collateral loan market. We'll complete this one slide. and wind up for today. We'll do the bill market and acceptance market in tomorrow's class, which is at 10 o'clock. Okay? So collateral means keeping security. The word collateral means having security or guarantee. Okay, so in this market, you will get a loan only if you keep something as security or guarantee. In this market, loans are generally advanced by commercial banks. That means they're given by commercial banks to private parties in the market. So people like you, me, companies, private people get such loans. The collateral loans are backed by the securities, stocks, and bonds. So you need to keep something as security. It can be shares of any company that you have, bonds of a company, or any property or anything that you want to keep as security, you can keep that. The security is returned to the borrower once the loan is repaid by him, and if the borrower fails to repay the loan, the collateral becomes bank's property. These types of loans are provided for a few months. Because it's a short duration loan, remember we're talking of money market, which should have maturity of maximum 1 year. So within a year only, if you're trading, you call it as money market. So you get this loan for a few months, maybe 6 months, 9 months, 3 months, and you will have to keep something as security. If you don't repay the loan, the banker will take your security as their own property, sell it, and recover the money. So, unlike call market, these loans are given for months. There, it was given for days. Here, you ask for security. There was no need for security. In call market, the interest rate was very low because the time duration was also less. Here, the interest rate will not be too low. It may be 2%, 5%, because you're giving it for shorter duration. So that was collateral loan market. In my next session, we'll start with the acceptance and bill market. Then we'll go to capital market. And next class only, I'll be starting with what is primary, secondary, BSc, NSC, all those details. And we'll go to the, after the markets are over, we'll go to the sources of wealth, where we will start with shares, debentures, and all these that we have to discuss. Still a lot to do. We'll meet up tomorrow and continue. Any doubts in this class? You can ask. If there are no doubts, you can type your roll numbers in the chat box. If there are doubts, please ask. I'll clarify.